Bev's Video Kingdom is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised.
I can grab your favorite podcast. Let's start this thing. Woo!
All right, so here we are at the Last Call Brewery. We've been brewing a beer, the Bvk IPA that we've been pumping up. And it's right now boiling. It's in the boiler. It's to a boil.
You guys can probably hear it a little. We've swapped our normal train noises for the kettle noise, the boiling of our beer.
Yeah, we're just about I guess halfway through the day. We've got to the middle of our boil. We've got a few boil additions there, and then when the boil's done, we'll start knocking out and going in the fermenter. But yeah, we're about halfway through today. So. Yeah.
So, in case you guys didn't recognize, that was Walter Ramirez, our guest, our former guest judge, future guest judge, and good friend here at Last Call, who's doing the brewing, and he's been teaching us all day. So, Brad had done this before, but I hadn't never been a part of a beer brewing situation. So, and Walter was earlier kind of joking. He's like, "Well, you guys can ask questions. I'm just going to keep talking." And I know it probably feels a little bit like sometimes, but I was soaking it in. Like awesome. I really, cool. I love that kind of stuff. And you're a great teacher of this. It's obviously you're passionate about it. So it's been really an interesting experience. So remind us what the basic steps were that we went through today, right? So my recall, I'll start with what I remember, and you can explain. How about that?
Definitely.
So we rolled in here, and we're going to do what I think is called a mash.
Yep.
So there's a whole bunch of bags. They look like chicken feed, because that's what that's the bags I got chickens. So we had I think 12 bags sitting along a wall.
55-pound bags.
55-pound bags.
Yep.
And so we dumped those in a particular order into what do we call that? The big
that tank is our mash tun.
The mash tun.
The mash tun is the tank that we steep the mash in. Yeah.
Okay, so we ripped them all open, and by the way, I should just say thanks to the owners of Last Call. Walter is the head brewer, but one of the owners was here this morning.
Brian and Josh are the owners of Last Call, and they've been amazing throughout Last Call's journey.
Yeah, and so Brian was here, and he welcomed us, and Jake Stevens, who manages the tap room. So crew here to kind of welcoming us and helping us out. So we have these 12 bags. So we were instructed first off we were going to dump these eight bags of something in. What would we dump in first, Walter?
Yeah, so our grist or our grain bill, we had some pure Idaho malt, which is just a nice light Pilsner malt, which I like to use in our hazy IPAs, which is, that's what Bvk Ipa is. We're going to brew a hazy IPA. Just keeps the color of it nice and light. It keeps the body pretty straightforward. It's just a super solid base to build to let those hops really shine, which is the goal of really any IPA. Okay. So that's what we started with. The majority of our grist was a pure Idaho Pilsen malt.
Okay, so that's potatoes, right?
It's not made out of potatoes. It's just barley. But
okay.
All grown in Idaho. So that's where the name comes from. Yeah.
All right. So it was milled barley, right? We dumped that in. And then the next two bags were what?
So we had two other malts there. We had some white wheat malt, which is a malted wheat. That really helps with body of the beer, some head retention, really kind of gives the beer a little more fullness, a little more character. When I speak to the mouthfeel of the beer, how thick or thin the beer is, that white wheat kind of helps build that mouthfeel up to a rounder, fuller beer, which is what you want from a hazy IPA. And then we also added some flaked oats. Flaked oats are, once again, big for that nice full body that is kind of a hallmark of the hazy IPA. So a nice full grist, full grain bill in order to build a round, soft, palatable hazy IPA.
Nate, were you surprised at how much grain we put in there?
I to be honest, I had no idea what I can tell you my level of understanding of where beer comes from was that that there are cans that show up at my house sometimes, and beer comes out of them. So I can tell you, I knew there was some. I knew heat was probably involved. There's probably some water at some point, and I knew something called grains and hops go into them. I had no idea, man. I genuinely I could have showed up and you guys could have like pulled out like one bag of some shit and put it in there, and I'd be like, yeah, that sounds right. so I don't know. I mean, it was a lot. It was a shit ton. It was heavy. So and speaking of water, right? So they've got this great setup at Last Call. So we start pumping in water at about 180 degrees or so.
Yeah, we enter we go into the mash tun with our water at about 174 or 72 because of the temperature loss we're going to have with the grain and from the just the ambient temperature of the tank. That gets us down to the mash temperature that we're targeting. So
I'll be honest. I felt like I was in Breaking Bad because I felt like I was like, when do we get to break up the blue? You know what I mean? Because I'd never been around these big stainless tanks. So we got a couple ladders, and me and Brad and Nick are rotating. One of us is up there dumping these bags in. The other one has a big paddle. Mixing it into the water like we're making a giant batch of chocolate chip cookies. And so we just slowly dump these bags in, make sure it doesn't clump up, as Walter explained really carefully, that we want to make sure we get no clumps so everything gets wet. It starts that mash process. And so we got it all in there. We got the water in, and we kind of hung out for a little while, and then it starts to circulate, right? So we sort of hook up a pump, and we're circulating it so that none of that, so that we get good mixture, and none of that stuff settles down to the bottom of the tank, right?
Yeah. We start about halfway through our mash. The way we brew is we start a recirculation just to kind of get some nice clean wort. We want to kind of filter that mash through itself so that when we move over to the kettle, we've got some clean wort and some more efficient wort. So that's the whole point of the recirculation.
So let's talk about the wort for a second, because before today, I thought warts were just the things I had to go to the doctor to get burnt off of my hands and feet when I was a kid. So. All right, so the wort. So you guys kind of described it as like basically, a glorified oatmeal, right? So we got all these grains that are kind of flaked and milled. We put them in water, we heat them up, put in a little bit, a few chemicals, right? And so then at the end of the process, you get this what looks a lot like oatmeal, right? You drain all the liquid out into the kettle. And it kind of looks like and tastes a little bit like oatmeal, right? So I mean,
that's still the mash, though, correct?
Yeah. So all the spent grains, or what the grains are after we've pulled all of the wort out of them. The wort's the liquid. So we're essentially making a tea, I guess, is the easiest way to describe it.
So
and to relate to.
So we separate the tea from the oatmeal.
Pretty much,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we took the oatmeal and we tasted a little bit of it. It did taste kind of sweet, not too sweet though. You said most of the sugar, a lot of it came in was left with the wort.
Exactly. If our mash was doing its job, then a lot of that sugar is in the wort, which is WORT, the liquid that we're pulling into the kettle out of the mash tun. And so those grains that are spent and left in the tank, they'll have a little sweetness left to them, but they're fairly bland because we've converted all those starches to sugars, and we've pulled those sugars out of the grain into the kettle.
If you want to try wort at home, essentially make some oatmeal water, pour some oats in, pour a shit ton of sugar, and then get all the oats out, so you just have the liquid left, and take a sip of that. And
which we did. We cheers to that. We even did like a little boomerang thing.
Yeah, we did a little wort shot.
Wort boomerang.
Wort shot.
So we did a wort shot. So then, okay, so we got to that end of the process. We pumped all the wort into the kettle, right, to boil it, and we added water while we were doing that, right? So you take the wort mix, which is fairly concentrated, dilute it with the water as you're pumping it, so you get this liquid that goes nicely into the kettle. It's boiling. I'm watching the steam right now come up out of this sort of giant kettle.
300 plus gallons of liquid in there.
And then we took, interestingly, so our fancy oatmeal, we shoveled it out into a bin that's going to go off to a farm, right?
Yeah,
to a local farm.
One of our good friends. His name is actually Brian. Also, he has a ranch and he feeds it to his cows, and he mixes it, with hay and everything, and
Circle.
so it goes to good use. If we didn't have that, we
Circle
would
of life.
we would just
circle.
toss it out, and we have no use for it after it's spent, but it can feed some cows and some pigs and all that kind of
Cool.
stuff. So we send it off to his ranch.
And they don't get hammered because there's no alcohol.
No alcohol at that point. Yeah,
Unfortunately,
they don't get hammered.
we just go cow tipping. We know the easy targets. After.
Unless you're a crazy farmer and you just let it sit out for a while. And let it ferment,
Ferment
and then
that.
then get
Gets
those cows
fermented.
getting wild.
Yeah, so it's boiling right now, and I think you said that we're getting close to done with the boil, and because this one we don't want it to be particularly bitter, so we're not going to add hops till the very end.
Yeah, so everyone has their own philosophy on when hops should be added to beers based on the style. We generally hold all of our hop additions in our hazy IPAs to the end. The longer the general rule is the longer you boil hops, the more bitterness you're going to get out of them. The shorter you boil them, the less bitterness and the more of the flavor and aroma that'll stick around. That's just kind of a hard and fast rule. There's a lot more nuance to it. But with hazy IPA, you want low bitterness, you want a soft, full body, and even a touch of sweetness sometimes. So, we build our grain bill to have a full body, nice round water profile, nice soft water profile, and then you add those hops all towards the end of the boil, so you minimize the amount of bitterness that you receive, so that beer continues to be nice and smooth in the final product when you drink it, but you still have that big kind of hop character and hop aroma there without any of that kind of bitter punch that is associated with the West Coast IPA. if you will.
Okay. All right. So next up, we're gonna put the hops in. We're gonna pipe it over to the fermenter, right?
Yep.
And then it's go time. We put the yeast in. When do we put the yeast in?
Yeah, so once we're coming to the end of our boil here, we are going to we'll do a whirlpool in the kettle and a few other small steps, and then we'll go through our chiller in a process where we're knocking it out, or it's called knockout. So you go through a heat exchanger to cool the wort down to fermentation temperature. You can't ferment at boiling, right? So we chill it down to 68, 69, 70 degrees. Once we get all of the wort into the kettle, then we'll pitch our yeast. We'll add our yeast at that point, and the yeast take over, and the yeast start making beer.
And it was cool earlier. We were walking through. There's a whole bunch of fermenters here, and there's like little tubes coming out of them into buckets of water, and they're bubbling. You can smell them. It has all those kind of beer aromas.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
It's very cool. Yeah, it's a cool process.
Yeah, the yeast are the little warriors, man. Those are the guys that do the work. They get in there and start converting that sugar, and that brings out the happy juice.
The happy juice. That's where the magic happens, if you will. Yeah, the magic leads to the happy juice.
All right, so here's what I want. So for those of you that are either beer enthusiasts but don't know very much about them, or just like me and don't know anything about beer at all, so I want to let's go through like a little thought experiment here about what you would do. So take me to a basic lager. Okay, so let's say I want to build. Not your light, not the light exactly, but just sort of like a standard lager. Like how does that process look in shorthand? Based, what would you do? Take me through the process like we did today.
Yeah.
For that lager, what would be different?
Yeah, definitely. There's variation in lager, right? You've got a bunch of different styles, but say just for a light American lager, something that is akin to Bud Light or Coors Light.
Sure.
Or Michelob, something in that vein. You start with a very light grain bill, right? Pilsner malt, super light, super clean, and by light I mean in color, right? You're not using nearly as much grain as you used in the beer we did today. Maybe half that amount.
So not only light or colored grain, but also less grain because the water content is going to be higher relatively.
Relatively, yeah. You're looking for less sugar because you're looking for less alcohol, right?
Okay.
And then some of those, macro lagers have flaked rice or flaked corn, and you'll add that to the mash tun, just like we added some flaked oats in our hazy IPA today. So really simple grain bill, clean. You're looking for a very crisp, clean beer in one of those light American lagers. So we'd mash just the way we did today. The water to grain ratio will probably be a little different because there's so much less grain. And then we'll continue with the same steps. We'll go through the recirculation on the mash. We'll move the mash over the wort over from the mash to the kettle. Your hop additions are going to be different, right? Those lagers have a little bit of character to them, so you're going to be adding a lot less hops than we're going to add today. And then a different yeast strain as well. Lager yeasts operate differently. Lager yeasts and ale yeasts are the two main classifications of beer yeast. Lager yeast operates colder generally. It's slower for the most part. Whereas ale yeasts will operate at a higher temperature, 68 to 72 degrees, and they'll operate just a little bit faster in terms of fermentation. So,
all right, so let's hold everything constant. I like to play with things and just move one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So let's say I wanted a standard American lager, but I wanted to increase the alcohol content significantly.
Yeah.
All right, so I want everything to be pretty similar. Otherwise, what do I do?
Just bump your grain bill. You bump your grain bill up. You add more grain. The more grain you add, the more sugar you'll get. The more sugar you get, the more alcohol you'll get.
Okay, so that's going to also lead to a little darker color, right? If I add more grain, or can I keep it pretty light so I can just add more grain, but make sure the color of the grain's really light?
Yeah, exactly. We'll use some more of that light Pilsner malt, so it won't adjust the color at all, because when you're adding more grain, your water volume is going to increase too. We're still shooting for the same amount of liquid in the final product. 310 gallons is what we do per batch, 10 barrels. But your total amount of water used is going to be different.
Okay.
So you're still getting the same color in that respect, because you're not using the same amount of water with a larger grain bill. You're using a little bit more water as well as more grain. So that color should stay in the same range.
All right, what if I want my alcohol content to be back down to that normal level, but I do want a darker colored beer?
Yeah, so that's when you can start playing around with different specialty grains, right? We've got some crystal malts, which are roasted malts that have been kilned, depending on, if it's crystal 20, crystal 40, crystal 60, those numbers, the higher the number, the darker the malt, the darker the roast. So you'll get more character out of those malts, more roasted caramel, chocolate, toasted biscuit flavors, depending on how high you go with the crystal malts. Or there are also things called bitterless black malts, where you add a bunch of color, but you don't add any of those kind of roasted, smoky, coffee-ish flavors. It's just for color, but you'll still get some sugar out of them as well. So
yes,
there's a few different ways to do that.
When we brewed our Savage AF, which was our chocolate coffee porter last time with Walter, we poured some dark grain in there. So I didn't realize that that's just instantly what makes the color different. It's just dark grain.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't take a ton either to change the color. For instance, the beer we did today, we worked with about 660 pounds of malt and wheat and oats. If we were to just add one bag of say chocolate or dark roasted crystal malt, that color would change dramatically.
Okay, so I want to ask about flavors now. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to our basic light lager. Okay, now all I want to do now is I want to add some, say, a citrus flavor to it. Okay, what do I do to make it that citrusy beer? Same basic alcohol content, hopefully the same basic color, but I get a little citrus flavor in it.
Yeah, so if we're moving away from the change in color and some of that roasted character from the darker malts, you're going to get all those flavors from your hops. So basic classic lagers use what are called noble hops, hops that have been used forever. Saaz, Czech Saaz, American grown Saaz, Hallertau Mittelfrüh. These are all what are considered noble hops, so they've been traditionally used a lot. But if you are looking for something that's, say, more citrus and grapefruit forward or more tropical, you're just going to change the hop bill, the hops that you use. You're going to switch maybe some of those classic noble hops for more modern, maybe American grown hops that have a bit more fruit to them, New Zealand, Australian grown hops that are a lot more tropical or have some white wine characteristics to them. So that flavor would all come from your hop selection, what hops you're going to use in the beer.
And so am I understanding it right that I could change the flavor profile of a beer by changing the hops or the grains or both?
100%. Both of those play pretty close to each other in terms of building the flavor character of a beer. Depending on the style, that generally dictates what you're changing to get different flavors and aromas. IPA, for instance, right, is very hop driven, very hop forward. So the hop selection is going to greatly influence the flavor over the malt will, right? The malt generally is just a solid base for the hops to shine, whereas you get into even some more nuanced lagers, things like black lagers, Czech pilsners, German pilsners and Czech pilsners and American pilsners all have different characteristics, and it's based on the grains and the hops used. They change a little bit. So that's grains and hops will play really close together in terms of creating the flavor and aroma of the beer.
So do you ever put anything that's for flavor or for other reasons that's not neither to flavor a beer that's neither hops nor grain? Can I just dump in some grenadine? I mean, that's where we're going. Do I just bring my bottle of grenadine down? I just dump that shit in and we get that nice little grenadine
There
flavor?
are certain federal laws that prevent certain things from being added to beer. I couldn't just dump like a fifth of vodka in there or something.
Well, what about what if you wanted like McDonald's fries flavor? Could you just like dump?
I mean, you could get it really wild. There's a lot of breweries that get really crazy. You know, there's breweries that have added breakfast cereal to be like Lucky Charms breakfast cereal, or
they literally
just
take a box of
boxes
Lucky Charms into the mash tun.
Yeah, and just let it sit. We've added pies to the beer when we do our pie sours.
So sorry. You actually take a fucking pie.
Yeah, we throw them in there. Yeah.
Throw the whole baked done pie into the mash.
Yeah, we do. We've done that.
And can you really taste it? I mean, do you really get that flavor?
What we do is we'll use that more so than anything as a kind of a marketing shout out. For instance, on those beers we work with Blooming Camp Ranch, a local bakery.
Yeah.
And
Great
that's
place.
for photos and saying, hey, like we're working with Blooming Camp on these beers, and then you get some flavor from those things, but we also build that flavor profile and that beer's character with other ingredients. Yeah, we'll for instance, on the last one, I had them make me a bunch of their pie crust, just their pie crust.
Yeah.
And that's where most of that pie crust flavor came from. And then we also added fruit. To answer your question, you can add a bunch of crazy stuff. Fruit is a big one.
So you take a bunch of cherries and throw cherries in
Marion berries, strawberries. The last pie sour we did was a strawberry rhubarb pie, and so we got a bunch of strawberry puree and rhubarb puree, and we added that to the beer, and that
all gets added at the mash stage.
No, that all gets fruit and things like that all get added during or post fermentation.
Yep.
So after today, we pitch our yeast, for instance. In a few days, we'd be adding those things. But there are ingredients that get added to the mash. For instance, cereals or donuts, or people get crazy with all this kind of stuff. So, and then you have spices you can add. Right, some traditional styles of beer are very spice driven. Hefeweizens and gozes and things like that. And you could steep those in the boil. We could take some cinnamon and steep it in the boil right now, or we could, clove or orange peel, anything like that. For Belgian wits and things, you can add spices and herbs to the beer on the boil. And so I guess at each stage, there are different things you can add.
A lot of stouts, for example, are classic, for either having a real chocolatey character or a coffee flavor, or both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
he threw coffee beans in and cocoa nibs when we did ours, in little mesh things. You stick them down in there.
Oh, in a mesh bag, you actually.
It just makes cleanup a lot easier.
And that was the mash stage or in the boil?
That was in
fermentation.
Post fermentation,
Okay.
you essentially let those ingredients steep in the liquid, and in an instance of coffee beans, it's like you're cold brewing coffee, right? Those flavors are going to come off into the beer. So a lot of those kind of chocolate coffee-y flavors in stouts and porters and browns come from the grain bill, because we have grains that are malted and modified to emulate those flavors. Dark chocolate, roasted coffee, caramel toffee. But you can also add those actual ingredients to the beer and influence the flavor that way. Is what coffee beans. We work with a local coffee roaster out of Modesto a lot whenever we do coffee beers. Cocoa nibs, chocolate, vanilla beans. All of those are ingredients that we've used before in beers, and those are generally added during or after fermentation. On the cold side, we bag them up in sanitized mesh bags and drop them in the beer.
Now, hop farming has become this kind of elite thing, right? Where there's just like these farms that are like trying to get all crazy and design the newest cool hops, and it's like, is it becoming like a huge big business as far as?
Yeah, I mean, hops. So California in the Sacramento region was a big grower of hops pre-Prohibition, actually, and then all that got changed to something else when Prohibition came about, and a majority of it was grapes. From what I understand, in the areas that grew hops, and so some local growers are attempting to just grow Cascade, Chinook, just standard hops again, just to kind of get back into it. There's a couple hop farms here in and around Oakdale, actually, that have some hops for sale that they've offered for the breweries around here to use. But when you get into like crazy breeding and developing new new hop brands and breeds. You've got big hop farms that have a lot of experience in crossbreeding these hops to select what characteristics they want in the new plant.
What's a hop plant look like?
Hop plant grows on what's called vines, vines but with a B, and they're normally on trellises that grow up, and the flowers look just kind of like I guess it looks fairly similar to cannabis.
Okay.
They're in the same family of plants, but they're bright green. There are hop flowers, or the actual plant where the lupulin glands are, which is where you get all the flavor and aroma, grow in bunches off of these vines. During the season, so during the spring and summer, if you drive by, I believe Fish Bio actually has hop trellises out back of their shop that you can see growing a lot.
Got it. Brad just showed me a picture now. I kind of
Yeah. So they grow north, and each of those vines have a bunch of clusters of hops on them that get picked. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, looks like we got to get to our next stage, so we're going to take a little break here, and we'll be back. All right. So we just talked about, Walter gave us some perspective on, how you change the process or ingredients in beer to give us different elements like more alcohol, more difference in color, differences in flavors. So we spent the day brewing Bvk IPA. So what's different about Bvk IPA, which is a hazy, than other hazies that you guys do, that other hazies that people do? What's different about it than other things you've done?
Yeah, so it's both the same as a lot of the hazies we do and different, because we have a pretty solid base, I think, for our hazy beers, grain bill wise and water profile wise, that just kind of really creates the feel that we want for these beers. But where these IPAs shine are the hop selection, right? The hop combos that we're using, and so it's just a unique combination we've not used before. We've not used, we're using Mosaic, Azacca, and Cashmere hops, and we've not used Cashmere a ton. I think we've maybe only used it in one other beer. So that's a new thing for us, and that's a hop that'll kind of take some center stage there. Mosaic is a favorite of everyone, so you throw that in a beer and it's always going to shine. And the Azacca hop is something that we like to use a lot. It's nice and tropical and fruity and big, and it's very, I think, well suited for a hazy IPA. So just that combination of hops is really what sets it apart, other than that we had you guys come in and brew it with us. That's, I think, the most important differentiator is you guys had your hands in it, you helped make it, you're going to continue to help make it, as we dry hop and cellar the beer. So
I'll say, man, we put our love, sweat, and tears in this, and I literally
sweated.
The sweat and the tears went in before it got boiled. So once it gets boiled, don't worry about the sweat and the tears. It went in a little bit early. It's going to get boiled out. Yeah. You're not going to be tasting any of our sweat or tears, but it's in there.
No, you'll taste it. It's just it'll be sanitary. So I stuck my hand in there a little, and so you probably will get some of that Nate's hand flavor. So it'll be the finish will be really handy. You know what I mean?
You're gonna have a handy finish.
Yeah, handy finish.
A handy finish. That's just like we love. That's the BVK way.
But I think
Let's put that on the shirt.
That is the most, I think, important differentiators. We've done this before, as I've told you guys. We worked with Ed and Josh, the Hoist and Heavies guys, put together a beer with them, and in that same vein, the most important part is that our guests, our customers, our friends are in here and sharing in what our passion is in making beer, and you guys are going to be able to share that with all your friends and family down at the tap room when we release the beer. And I think that's the most unique and different thing about it is the perspective that you guys gain from brewing it with me, and hopefully the ownership you guys take over the brewery, and hey, that's our beer. We made that. Brad's had a little bit of that before with the trivia team, and
I definitely feel like we have we build like a 2 or 3% stake in the brewery now. We get literal ownership.
I'll just say, Professor Ramirez, man, is just
it's unbelievable.
just a genius in here spitting mad crazy knowledge about beer making, and it's awesome to hear.
So I like to bass fish, and I've gone out. I started bass fishing with a guy that's a guide named John Leasty, who does experience guide fishing just up here at New Maloney's Reservoir above Oakdale. And Walter, you remind me a lot of him in that way, especially when you were talking earlier. So I'll just keep talking. Like John is like so passionate about bass fishing, and he'll just talk and he'll explain everything he's doing, why he's doing it, the different ways you could do it. And a lot of times I'll just sit there and I'll just listen. And it reminds me a lot, like a lot of passion, a really good teacher, right? Like, you know, when you love something and when you're good at teaching it, it's just a joy to be around it, because if you're interested, it's so cool. So, you know, I feel like now I'm ready to start my own brewery. You know, I feel like that's where I'm at in
That's
my
awesome.
life. And so, you know, one day with Walter, and it's go time.
I went into Nate's classroom one time, and you know, I mean, he likes to. He's a professor, so went into his classroom. Nothing like that. I fell asleep within like the
I
first 2
literally
minutes.
don't know what you're talking about. I don't know whose classroom you're in. You went into someone else's classroom, because I'm a podcaster and a beer maker. So the reason you're bored is because I wasn't there.
Well, I appreciate that. Those are kind words, and I got into this, you know, strictly almost by accident. I drank myself into it. I think I mentioned that on the first podcast that I was on with you guys, and you know, but what I mean by that even more is that I had an interest and a passion, and if I can share that with you guys, and you guys kind of see that passion, and hopefully it grows in you, and maybe not to open a brewery and be a brewer, but just to have a little bit more of a respect and a little bit more of a reverence for the product, you know, and you can understand a little more what goes into it. And I think being a part of something is always makes all of us feel good, right? So it's going to be really cool. And once again, I keep harking on this, but Brad's experience is to go into the tap room and see Bvk IPA on the draft board, or, you know, go to the one of the mini accounts we sell cans to, and maybe your, you know, brother calls you and says, "Hey, dude, like, your podcast labels on a can of beer here," you know. So I think that's the coolest part.
That's how I know I'm gonna have made it, is when someone calls and says, "Hey, dude, you're on a beer can." You know, it's just, that's where it's at.
That's always a pretty cool thing to see.
Well, I'm pretty excited. So we're just about to wrap up. We're gonna move. We're gonna pump all this boiled beer over into a fermenter.
Yep, we're gonna knock out and get the wort over to a fermenter, pitch some yeast, and let the magic happen.
Okay, and then so we'll have a couple more rounds to add some little things over the next few weeks, and then day before the release, we get to come and crack a beer. We'll make sure we take some pictures and some videos. We get to try our Bvk IPA for the first time. And then February 5th, man, it's gonna be nuts. Are you coming, Walter?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll definitely be there. Yeah, the canning day right before the release, you guys are invited down to. You'll get the first cans off the line, and you got to shotgun them. That's the rule.
That's the rule. Damn, I better get a driver.
No, that's a fun day. You know, you get to see the beer being put into cans. You get to see the final product, what all our friends and family will grab out of the cooler and drink at home. And so that'll be really fun. And then February 5th, I'll be down there to celebrate the release with you guys. Definitely.
Sweet, man. Hey, thanks so much. This has just been a truly awesome experience. Really fun, really cool. Great to have you,
Zach. It's been so amazing. This has been just a great experience, Zach. You can't even believe how awesome this experience has been, Zach.
Zach, how excited are you to have been a part of this from home, watching us send you photos on your phone? Was it pretty cool? Okay, great.
Zach also has a Last Call T-shirt. He didn't even get the chance to wear it out here. He wasn't able to make it down.
I hope maybe he used it today as like his pillow on the bathroom floor.
Oh, good.
You know, special. All right, we're here with Jake Steffens. Oh, wait.
Oh.
Is it Jake Stevens?
Off to a bad start already.
We were fucking with Jake earlier. We're talking names, and Jake was like, people constantly can't get Stevens right because it's the PH.
My whole life.
So we are here. We're literally sitting in the brewery at Last Call Brewing in Oakdale, California right now. And we have been brewing Bvk IPA all day.
If you hear a little buzz in the background, that's actually that boiler right now is bringing the wort that makes beer is coming to a boil right now. So that's what we've got going. It is right now coming up to temperature. That's the boiler sound.
So we've been with Walter Ramirez all day brewing, and Jake Stevens has been here with us. What's up, Jake?
What's going on, guys?
So
pleasure to have me on the. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And you are the Last Call tasting room in downtown Oakdale. You're the tasting room manager.
Tap room. Let's go tap room. Tasting room.
Tasting room, tap room, however you want to.
You guys aren't pretentious enough for a tasting room, so you have a tap room.
I wouldn't say we're at that level yet. Yeah, I don't think we're at that level yet.
So we're doing the Bvk IPA release, and that is going to be February 5th. That's a Saturday. And so you guys, what time does the tap room open that day?
So we open at noon. We close at 10.
Okay, so we'll be kicking off. So you can get in there at noon and you can just drink all day, right? I mean, people just come in and fucking pound all day, right?
Yeah.
You get BVA
responsibly. Yeah.
Responsibly. Yeah. But we're going to show up probably around 4, I would guess. Between 4 and 5, the BVK crew is going to be here. Nikki, you going to be there?
Yeah, I'm going to be in the bus with you guys.
Will you be here with us?
I'm going to be in the party bus.
We're trying to get that party bus going, so hopefully
bus.
We'll have that hopefully happening.
Maybe rolling deep.
All right, so Brad, have you been to? You've spent a shit ton of time in the Last Call tap room.
Yes. I was there opening day. I was there year anniversary. I've been there a lot of hours.
So give me your best. Like, give me your quick description. Like, what is the tap room all about? What's it like?
Well, it's comfortably situated in the heart of downtown Oakdale, so you've got all sorts of cool little shops around.
Which is the cowboy capital of the world.
It is the cowboy capital of the world. That is correct. So you walk into the Last Call tap room. I mean, it's a variety of tables. They actually, on summer days, they have outdoor seating now, and always going to be a food truck there to supply some delicious grub. But the thing you come up there for is for their delicious beers. And Jake, 16 beers on tap, correct?
16 beers on tap, a blonde ale, some light lager. Around this point of the release party, we'll have a few hazies on draft, including the BVK.
And the karate.
And the karate will be back hopefully by then.
And for you old school Last Callers, I think some Juice is Loose is going to be probably.
Juice might be making a comeback from what I've been hearing through the grapevine.
That sounds pretty tasty.
What's the food truck on tap? Because there's no, you don't serve in the tap room, but you've always got a delicious food truck out there when you got stuff going.
So
right?
Having COVID happening, we had to do food vendors to operate indoors. So we created a great relationship with a lot of great food vendors in the area. Saucing It Up, which is originally out of LA. They actually came to me through social media and said, "Hey, we're moving up to Modesto area. We'd love for you to be our first brewery. I know you're one of the oldest breweries in the valley, so we'd love for you to be our first vendor location." So great chicken sandwiches. So what they do, their specialty is they do fried chicken sandwiches, fried chicken, biscuit with a pickle underneath, the fried chicken, and then a honey drizzle on top. Bam. Topped with another biscuit.
Jesus.
Phenomenal.
With a name like sauces, like Sauced Up Bar?
Saucing It Up.
Do they have any special
They do.
good sauce?
Every sauce they have is made in-house. You name it, they have like 10 different sauces. And I think each sauce is like $1 a piece, and you get a good amount.
I'm about to pay
$10
for just
Shout
sauce.
out to Damon Ramsey and his
saucy.
wife.
Damon Ramsey.
Yeah, so she's originally from Modesto. She moved down south. They both started working in the food industry in a kitchen. Met, got engaged, realized that they didn't want to work for someone else. They wanted to be their own boss. Started their food truck, and then slowly realized that food trucks in Southern California weren't as quite as popular as it is up here. So they moved up here, and
American dream, baby.
History.
American dream.
And Jake, what about you and your kind of background in this industry? Did you always want to get into brewing? How long have you been part of Last Call?
So I have been, as of November of this past year, 2021. It's been a year. I was a very frequent visitor of Last Call, as most of our employees. Ron and Walter both frequent visitors.
Right.
Walter especially, they're just one day he was drinking right here in Shepherd when it was our tap room as well. They were like, "Hey, you want a job?" And he's like, "Yeah." So he started helping out in the bar, and once they moved to First Ave, he was managing the tap room, and then slowly realized that front of the house operations really wasn't his deal. So he wanted to dive a little deeper into making the beer. So here we are.
So now you manage it.
I do, yeah. And shout out to Walter for a quick minute, man. That guy, I've never learned more about beer from him than anybody else. Like, he is in my mind, he is like the Mr. Miyagi of craft beer. He's phenomenal.
It's been incredible today, and me, somebody, maybe less than any of the rest of you, not knowing as much about beer. It's the crazy amount of science and,
chemistry,
moving parts and chemistry that go into
science is chemistry, science, chemistry, right?
I think they count chemistry as a science and not as a humanity, one of the humanities anymore. I don't know. I'm not sure where we are in
It's
the
not part of the
Renaissance.
VAPA department anymore, like it used to be. Gotcha.
Hey, if high school started having little brewing programs, little junior brewers, that'd be
right.
sweet.
We might get kids really interested.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to get kids into science,
And maybe some hydroponics, maybe get some fucking
absolutely.
weed
I'll tell
growing.
you what, though, if I would have met Walter and he wouldn't have told me his background in like college and whatnot, I would have for sure thought he went to school for all this because he is so knowledgeable.
Oh, he
So
seems
knowledgeable.
like somebody that was
Every
trained.
day I come out here to
professional.
Shepherd, I'm learning something new from him that I had no idea about.
I always say that dude found his passion 100%.
For sure.
Like,
His knowledge is encyclopedic
Oh, it's phenomenal.
of brewing.
Yeah.
It's
Next level.
unbelievable to hear him talk about brewing.
Well, and what's really cool is we came in here today, and Walter was like, "No, I'm not brewing the beer. I'm going to be overseeing and teaching you. You guys are going to brew the beer." And it's totally true. Like, we walked in, and he's like, "Okay, this is what you're going to do," and he trusted us to not drop the bags of grain all over the floor, which we haven't yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, he kind of took us through the whole process, and like it's kind of cool. The idea that we were going to have BVK IPA, which started with a stupid rhyme that Zach came up with, is cool in and of itself. And I thought, well, yeah, we're going to have a fucking logo on a can. We're going to have this stuff that's called, but otherwise, right, it's just going to be a beer. No, man, like, we brewed the beer. Yeah. Walter taught us how to brew the beer, and he showed us, he explained all the stuff. We poured the chemicals in. It's fucking crazy, man.
That's what you got to love about Last Call. From everything that I've learned in a short amount of time is they take care of the people who take care of them in some way, and that are just, they're loyal to their customers, and they want to bring them on, and it's like a big family the way Walter's described it. And Brad, who's been part of that family and customers for a long time, is the only reason why we kind of worked into this beer too. And now Walter's just mad scientist, man. And also, we need to mention about old Zachy being out.
Well,
and we're
Zach
missing him.
gave me a pretty hard time on the Ready or Not pod when I was absent.
And we
due
just
to
got done bashing old Scotch Beck.
some sort of
too.
dysentery, and then Scotch Beck has the Rona. Zach, he texted us yesterday, who arguably would have been the most excited about doing this brewing process, and he's like, "This is where I tell you that I've been puking for the last 5 hours." And
Last
I
night.
immediately interpreted that as Zach being on the toilet and not being able to do anything because he was shitting himself,
Puking out of
dehydrated.
his butt.
Some
Yes.
Dumb and Dumber
Oh,
style.
Great.
Yeah, so I believe that's where Zach's at. Is I think he's actually on the toilet now, and he's drinking water through his mouth just so that he
And it's
stays
just
hydrated
flushing.
enough to go
Oh,
directly
okay.
into the toilet.
Poor guy.
Yeah,
I pictured him losing room in the toilet and going up to the tank and having to do an at-home
fill the tank,
The same
upper
way
deck.
I said you were too. Like, I said the same thing about you when you were gone.
Well, I can't confirm or deny those upper deck rumors.
He's got that
but-
upper deck power. You know what I mean?
So we miss you, Zach. Although I'm quite pleased that you have
miss you,
taken my
Zach.
place on the throne. Okay, so Jake, tell me. Here's what I want to know. So we've got February 5th, the beer release. The beer, it opens at noon. You can start going and drinking the BVK IP then, but we're gonna roll in around 4 or 5 in that range. And you've been to these sort of releases before. So what's a Saturday night like new beer release with a special sort of guest? What's it like? How's it shape up?
So we've done, since I've been working there, we've done another release party with a podcast. Shout out to Hoist and Heavies, Ed and Josh. One of the busier nights I've ever worked. I actually ended up driving Josh Barton home that night around 11,
Drink
11:30.
responsibly.
Drink responsibly, yeah. All the way out to past the golf course.
geez,
what's
way
that
out
road
there.
way out there?
That's commitment.
Atlas.
No, past Atlas.
Orange Blossom.
Oh, so Orange Blossom?
No. It's
Not Deadwood. Dillwood?
Dillwood.
There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah. So I was like, here? Driving out there. Here? This road? No. Keep
This is
going.
gonna be-
It's gonna be Dillwood.
yeah, keep going,
Oh,
keep going.
Man, we're really out here.
So we're gonna be there around 4 or 5, and people coming in, everybody's ordering the beer.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have some of our merch, right? So there's always some T-shirts for sale. We're gonna be working on Nikki Brown over there in conjunction with Walters, working on the design for the beer can, and we're going to try to maybe turn that into a T-shirt. We're also going to have our standard Bev's Video Kingdom logo T-shirts, maybe some hats even. What do you think, Nick? You think we're going to have hats?
Maybe. We're going to
out.
try. We're going to have stickers.
So we have some stickers, but so we got that piece of it. We're going to bring the podcast equipment. We're going to set it up, and we're going to do just a little bit of noisy recording in there. We don't know what's going to happen. We're going to have people sit down with us who, we might have fans on. We'll probably bring Jake back for another round. We don't know what's going to happen. So we're going to have our equipment. We are going to have the one and only Scotch Beck. So you guys have live music in there?
We do. Usually Wednesday nights we have live music. Typically around the farmers market time, but we've continued that into the winter and early springtime. So
it's a good setting for that, right? They've got the setup where Scott's going to be in there. He'll be playing some of his stuff from the Ballad of Bosco Jenkins, which you can download at scotchbeck.com. You know what? I hear rumors that we might get Zach out there to play a couple songs.
I hear rumors that you and Zach are going to be playing a couple songs.
That's what you told me earlier. That
I might jump on for a wagon wheel. You never know. You never know what you're going to find.
He's going to be like Ron Burgundy. He's like, I didn't come prepared. He's going to go
guitar strapped on his back.
Guitar just flips around.
We're also going to look at some giveaways too. I mean, I think. We're a movie podcast. We're going to be doing maybe a couple movie trivia questions here for some giveaways to maybe win a shirt or some stickers.
I'll try not to answer.
Hey, no, absolutely jump in. Absolutely jump in.
We've talked to Jake enough to know that he's disqualified. His movie knowledge is too extensive.
Maybe even some Bev's Video Kingdom, trivia. So people that are listening,
some listener trivia.
What movie quotes has Nate butchered during the course of the Bev's Video Kingdom podcast?
How much?
Give us one of the 10 that he has butchered.
How much grenadine have I?
And besides the giveaways, speaking of trivia, Last Call Monday nights. If you want to compete in some very fun competitive trivia Monday nights, Last Call King's Trivia comes in and they do some giveaways as well for Last Call gift cards. So
which Bev's needs to make an appearance at Monday night.
I think Bev's needs a team
for sure. Monday night.
Well, Brad, you previously have brewed a beer because you and your crew of area guides.
We're now retired, but we definitely for a while it was. Monday nights were Savage AF.
Savage AF, and so you made a beer because you won the trivia night.
We had won multiple trivia nights. We kind of dominated the season. So we got to brew a beer.
I've heard legends of them just crushing every week. They're like, they're back
souls,
again.
Crushing
Savage AF.
The room empties out when Savage AF walks in.
No, but that's not even the point. The point is a lot of fun, people getting together and having fun. And,
it's a good time.
It's always very good times.
Very friendly, good competition. It's a blast.
100%.
And the trivia jumps all over the place. Is it always scattered?
It's very wide, vast
specific?
range.
Okay.
Yeah, it's never the same. It's very out there. I heard that Geeks was actually a lot more difficult than King was, though. That's from all the people that come now that used to come when it was Geeks.
Right. So in your local area, you might have bars that do trivia, and sometimes it's Geeks Who Drink, and sometimes it's the King's Trivia. And King's Trivia seemed to kind of jump back in a little bit quicker post-COVID. Geeks is, I think, starting to make a comeback, but Geeks would have like video rounds and music rounds. And I think Kings might not do that as much.
Not quite.
Yeah.
So it usually opens with general knowledge, and then they do a picture round as the second round. So you got to guess each picture of who's this, who's that, who's this. My favorite round to ever is like you get the funniest answers out of people. It goes by points. So the first clue, you get 10 points if you get it right. The second clue, you get 8 points, and so on and so forth. So you get to 2. You get some pretty obscure guesses because you have no idea who it is until like the clues get more like in depth about who the person really is. The lower the points get.
I see. So if you get it on that first clue, you get the high points.
Yeah.
But if you wait around until you get to those easier clues, that's a fun way to do it.
Yeah.
They're like, who said stay classy, San Diego?
2 points.
2 points.
Okay, and for those of you, there's some folks here that listeners that are from the Northern California area, and you might know where Oakdale is, so you can come roll in. But hey, if you're from out of the area, you got time, so don't hesitate. Grab a plane ticket, fly into San Francisco, fly into Sacramento. There's plenty of perfectly nice hotels in Oakdale. You can come in, grab a hotel for the night, and come to Last Call. Make a day of it, make a night of it. Come in a day early. We're at the foot. We're the sort of very base of gold country here. So there's tons of cool things to see up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. That you can come make a trip of it. San Francisco's a couple hours away. So if you're a Bez fan and you don't live in California, make a trip of it, right? It's a good time of year. You're probably in some fucking bleak
Super
and cold.
ass,
It's probably like
-10.
But if you're Roxy Frost right now, it's like -11 where you live.
And your app's talking shit.
Jump, book a flight out of wherever you live. Fly to California. It's at least reasonably warmer, and come make a long weekend of it, and come check us out, hang out with us. It's closed. Last Call closes at 10, and when they actually finally kick us out, there's a couple of good bars we like to go to in Oakdale. Probably keep the party going. So let's come join us, man. We're gonna be there. We're gonna be having a good time. It's gonna be a great night.
If you're a big craft beer fan, there's 2 other breweries in town right across the street from where we're at right now, Dying Breed. Great beer, awesome venue. They have some amazing concerts. They have a really killer stage. Grains of Virtue, which is not far from Last Call. You could literally walk there from our tap room.
I got Nate over to Grains of Virtue
That's cool.
a few weeks ago, and we started playing some NBA Jam.
We were playing.
They got the little arcade in the back.
They're rocking some NBA Jam.
Free.
I sat down and I was
Free.
like, dude, where do I put the quarters in?
Yeah.
It's like, it's free.
Free arcade.
It's free. Totally free.
Street Fighter.
Street Fighter?
Oh, yeah. Street
we
Fighter,
played
NBA
some-
Jam.
played some NBA, some
Classic
Street
stuff.
Fighter. All the
Galaga,
classics.
Pac-Man, all that good stuff.
Oh yeah.
So join us there. Jake, you going to be there? You going to be running the bar?
I'll be there Saturday, February
5th.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right, so join us. Zach will be off the can by then, and so he's going to be there with us, hopefully not puking everywhere.
Hopefully not.
I'm kidding. You hope he doesn't puke till the end of the night.
Not while he's on the guitar.
So we're all going to be there. Scotch Beck's going to be there. I bet a lot of the guests that you've heard on Bez are going to be there. So get out and hang with us. Try the Bvk IPA, and wherever you are, look for Last Call beers, and make sure you support them. Follow them on socials. They got cool pictures.
Yeah, at Last Call Brewing, Instagram and Facebook.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right. We
Awesome.
good?
We'll see you there.
We'll see you there, guys.
Thanks, Jake.
Cheers.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
All right. Well, hey, that's it. So this has been your special BVK IPA episode, and we will hopefully see all you February 5th in Oakdale, California at the downtown Last Call Taproom. See you then.
I wanna be at Beverly's, bringing me home with my movies, just a blind ride, no reason why. I love this scene. Nick Natak and Brad, your favorite podcast. Let's start this thing.